Hello there, 8th graders. This is teacher Krishna, and welcome to our science class for week number 14. Before we start, thank you a lot for entering the online lessons, and of course for completing all of the assignments that we have assigned to you so far. So keep it up, please. Right before we start, let's just follow some general instructions. Log into Agilix, enter the Google Classroom, download your Word document, and save it in your science folder. Lastly, name it as it is specified right below. And as we move, remember to take notes on your Word document. That's very important so you can keep track of the gist and the general information that you are receiving from this video and PowerPoint presentation. Just like all of the week, it's very important to start with our end in mind. And I noticed that this week the topic is very extensive. So we are going to study only pages 1, 2, and 3. So the final evaluation will be done next week. So today we're only going to study the first pages, so take that into account. Our end in mind for the week is describe the relevance of gravitational forces in our universe by relating the history of space exploration and providing justification for future exploration by describing how scientists use telescopes. Okay, please keep track of your end in mind and the summary that you have done. Exploring the universe is the topic we're going to study this week. In the outer space, you will experience what's known as microgravity. The conditions of space, the gravity is at a minimum. So this is something very interesting to analyze because for us humans, we have lived all the time in planet Earth. But going to outer space, it's way different because there is not actually a force that is attracting you to the ground. So very regular things like walking or even sleeping can be totally different in outer space. So in order to have a better perspective of this, I'd like you to watch the video on page number 1 of topic 4.02. It's about a very important person from the US. I'm pretty sure that you will find it interesting. And of course, you have to make a personal comment about the video in your Word document. And of course, it's related to the space travel. So go ahead, you can pause the video once you are done watching the other video in Agilix. You can come back here. Now we're going to talk about space history. For hundreds of years, people have observed the sky and wonder if there is a way to navigate through it. Of course, it's something that has called the attention of humans for hundreds and thousands of years. Even we can talk about the Mayans in Guatemala. So Mayans used to observe a lot the sky and the weather conditions. And based on that, they were able to create calendars that were as precise as the ones that we're using today. And based on the observation of the sky, they were able to know when it was an appropriate time to plant corn and to plant several vegetables. And it was pretty interesting as well. And they have discovered constellations. They are named after people's heroes, gods, and creatures. There has been great advance in astronomy. Future missions are planned to be done by robots. So here we have an example of one of the constellations that people have found. And this is the constellation of Orion, the Hunter. And just like this one, there are a lot of constellations that you can find by looking at the sky. We can find the Ursa Major, we can find the Ursa Minor, Scorpion, Pisces, and a lot more. And that was thanks to all of the observation that people have done to the sky. And why are future missions to space being planned to be done by robots? What happens is that the distances that have to be covered are gigantic. and it's considered that the humans cannot live longer to travel all of those distances. But how can we still travel? By sending a robot that can have a longer period of life, and that can of course send back information to Earth. So that can help scientists to study a little bit more about the things in space. Now we're going to talk about a timeline. In the 1900s to the in 1950, invention of several vehicles. Space travel remains science fiction. Robert Goddard proved through mathematics, engineering, and science that space travel is possible. So Robert Goddard, in the last century, actually argumented that space travel was possible, and he actually gave all of his life to trying to prove that it's possible. And unfortunately, he died before man could go to any space travel. 1950 to 1959, dawn of the space age. 1955, United States and the Soviet Union announced trips to Earth's orbit. In 1957, Russia launches the first successful orbiting satellite. So why are we talking United States and the Soviet Union? Well, this is a key point in history because humans were starting to dream about traveling to space. And specifically in 1951, the world was just going out of the Second World War, and they were starting something called the Cold War, which was basically United States versus the Soviet Union. And they were fighting against power. They were trying to prove which of the countries were more powerful. And how were they going to prove that they were more powerful? They wanted to do that and show it to the world by traveling to space. So basically, the scientists from the United States and from the Soviet Union were trying so hard to send and launch the first spaceship to the moon, because that will be like a checkmate, and that will let the whole world know who the most powerful country or the most advanced country was. All right. So continuing with the timeline, in 1960 to 1969, 103 aircrafts were launched for space exploration, but only 48 were successful. And this is interesting because imagine less than half of the spacecrafts that were launched were successful. So it's possible that some of them simply were destroyed. And something that we need to remember is that in 1969, Neil Armstrong was the first man to walk on the moon. And it was some of the busiest years in space exploration. So one more time, the United States and the Soviet Union kept on trying very hard to launch the first spacecraft to the moon. And one more time, because of power and because of the message that they wanted to send to the world. And well, at the end, the United States was the first country that successfully landed at the moon. And it was totally a boom in the whole world because of the news that were about it. Some people were and still argument that that space trip never happened, and that was just done in a scenery. They were pretending to do everything with cameras and special effects. So I encourage you to look for some videos on YouTube about this space trip, so you can have a better idea and actually create your own opinion about it. And now in 1970 to 1979, the successfulness of spacecrafts dramatically increased. So 45 were launched and 34 were successful. So now this is pretty interesting because if we analyze it from the previous part, we can see that more than half of the spacecrafts that were launched were successful. And scientists started to plan to investigate Venus and Mars. Why were they trying to explore Venus and Mars? Because they are the closest planets to Earth. And traveling further than that is way more difficult to do. Okay, and here we have a picture of what the landing in the moon is like. So one more time, it's just for curiosity, you can go on YouTube and actually find some more interesting videos about it. Let's continue. So in 1980 to 1989, 13 robotic explorers were launched, and scientists sent some spaceships to explore the solar system. The Halley's Comet was investigated. So there were some spacecrafts that were just sent to never come back, but they were meant to keep on exploring the universe and send information back to Earth. So I heard a couple of years ago that one of the spacecrafts that scientists had sent to explore the universe had reached the end of the solar system, and they heard a couple of sounds that were like sort of the barrier that you could find right at the end of the solar system. So one more time, you can go on YouTube and look more information, more videos about it. And the Halley's Comet was investigated as well. Now, I would like you to go to your. I'm sorry, guys, about it. It's just that I don't know. For some reason, right now there is a lot of heavy transportation going by. But I'm sorry. Let's just continue. So, just like I was telling you, please log into Agilix and go around to the timeline and find out what happened from 1990 to 2010. That's for you to start reading a little bit and actually know a little bit more about the history that we have in there. Okay? And household items inspired by space exploration. So once humans started space traveling, they noticed that they didn't have all of the things from Earth. And there were many things that had to be modified in order for astronauts to have a way more comfortable experience. So thanks to that, there were some household items that were inspired by them. We have the Temper Foam, comfortable materials for the body. So basically, in space, all of the clothes and materials that you wear in your bodies are way more uncomfortable to wear. So basically, this helped humans to create materials that were more comfortable and attached and easily attached to the bodies. We have phase-changing materials. It modulates temperature. So in space, it's way more difficult to modulate the temperature because we don't have the normal temperature of the atmosphere in Earth. So basically, these materials are going to modulate that the metal and the things that are in contact with them are not going to overheat. So for example, when you are taking a shower, so the heater does not get way too hot in order to burn the skin of your body. We have ingestible toothpaste, toothpaste that can be eaten. So actually, it's something very interesting to analyze. But what happens is that in outer space, and one more time we have the microgravity. So basically your body is going to attract other materials. So let's imagine that you are going to wash your mouth. You're going to wash your teeth. So what happens is that if you want to puke on the toothpaste, it's not going to be as it happens in Earth, where everything simply goes out of your mouth. But a lot of particles are going to stay in your mouth and it's going to be way more difficult to take them out. That's why they created ingestible toothpaste. So instead of simply puking it out, you can just swallow it all. We have memory metal alloys. So metal that prevents overheating. So this is very similar to the phase-changing materials, and it prevents materials to overheat and burn and damage astronauts around. Infrared ear thermometers measure someone's temperature in 2 seconds. So this is something very interesting because originally astronauts were using these artifacts to measure the temperature of stars from very huge distances from Earth and from the space station where they were at. So thanks to that, we developed thermometers that can help us out to measure the temperature of a person super quickly, even in 2 seconds. We have water purification and reuse the water. So, and what happens is that in space, it's very important to reuse and, of course, recycle as many materials as you can because you have limited materials in there. So that's why we can go back to the analysis that we did last time about water purification and the use of water. And astronauts have developed systems to reuse the water on space stations. Okay, now we're going to talk about Florida and space. Space can be studied from Earth thanks to several tools. Rockets are launched from several locations according to their weather, geography, and economic status. The economic status is very important because actually sponsoring a space station and launching a spaceship is super expensive. So that is why only countries with a great economy have been able to actually send spacecrafts and space missions. But I'm pretty sure you heard of it. But a couple of months ago, we have the first satellite that came from Guatemala. That was amazing. It was a project developed by the Universidad del Valle. And it was incredible because it was like a huge advance in the technology of human history. And now, finally, Guatemala has our first satellite that is orbiting Earth. That's astonishing and amazing. And as long as I remember, our satellite is called Quetzal 1. Simply amazing. And NASA opened in 1962, and the John F. Kennedy Space Center, which serves as NASA's launch center. And in 2007, KSC injected more than 1.78 billion to the economy of Florida. 15,000 people worked at the center, and 1.5 million tourists annually. So this is something incredible because besides the great technological advance that you have in your country, then it serves a lot as a way to provide people with an opportunity to have a job. And of course, it attracts a lot of tourists to go there and actually see all of the installations that they have. Right, and lastly, you have a homework. Read pages 1, 2, and 3 from topic 2.04, 4.02, I'm sorry, and summarize it, especially page number 3. So like I was telling you, and this topic is very long, so we're going to work half of the topic today, half of the topic next week, and our evaluation will be next week. So right now, I just want you to read the first 3 pages of the topic. Please make sure to access all of the sections that you have in there and summarize it, all right? And it's very important for you to read. And personally, I need you to read a little bit more in this class because I have seen that some students are struggling a lot with the reading process. That's why we have had a very low grades in lessons that we have had so far. So it's like this at first. But I want you to read 2 times or even 3 times if you can the content. Trust me, right now you have more than enough time to do so. So please go ahead and do it. I really don't want any one of you to have very low grades or even fail the subject of the year. Okay? So please guys, read a lot. That's very important. And if you have any questions, I'm here to help you out. So, and that was it for today's lesson. Goodbye guys, I will be seeing you around next week.